to meet the code. You can see a residence that's nearby. This is the storage of tires outside is addressed in the PUD related kind of like accessory to the refurbishment business, kind of for those that are waiting in queue to get refurbished. This is the drive access that goes out to Mays Road from the property. This is looking outside the property again, looking at it to the southeast. Again, this western boundary of the site would need to have a solid screening fence and additional landscaping to meet the code. This is looking from the south property to the north towards the church property. And one last picture here, kind of looking to that western boundary, again to those houses to the west, with some additional landscaping and screening requirements that need to be put in place. And with that, I can stand for any questions.
Any questions for Philip? Thank you. Agent or applicant?
Good afternoon, Brian Lidback, 411 North Webb Road, MKC Engineering on behalf of the owner and applicant. I think something that's unique to this zone change case is oftentimes you're zoning for a planned use. Well, we're zoning for an existing use that, sorry, I'm getting back to the original view here. The existing use, some of you may know of Kirk Excavating years and years ago. This is where their office was, and this was their primary resident. They used this building here as part of their office. And I'm not sure when some of these additional accessory buildings, dwelling units were installed, but I think I gave you a nice history on the property. I think it's really important for this case because it's a little bit unique. This is unique in the fact that this property was there before anything was here, and it was utilizing construction type services and storage of materials and whatnot. The other thing that's unique about this property is when Kirk Excavating chose to sell this property in 2010, I believe it was, to an individual here, they retained an access easement, and at the time these two office buildings were not there, but they retained an access easement to their property. Then I think you may have read through there and noticed that there was a couple of zone change cases. Of course, Philip mentioned those. Originally, this was all part of one big PUD. It was actually approved. Their conditions were not met for platting. They came back through and did a zone change on just this a couple of years later, and it too was approved. For whatever reason, I have no idea, but they did not follow through with platting on either of those two scenarios. This property that went to auction in 2014 due to a foreclosure, and it was picked up with all the access agreements in place. This property then was sold in 2017 to the current owners, Doba Holdings. It was sold on the notion that they could use it for the type of services and businesses that they had planned to do. That, of course, wasn't the case. There was some confusion over history. Again, I think you might have read, if you had a chance, this was actually miszoned on the map, the official zoning map, as GC at one point in time. So possibly there was some confusion of that. I'm not sure. But nonetheless, we're here to correct a problem. I think that's the main point here, is we're trying to come into compliance. Also do it in a fashion that is protective of the neighbors, in a fashion that is realistic to the existing facilities that are there. We did reach out to the church, and we've sat down with them and had a good conversation about what uses are plugged into this PUD. We did reach out to the neighbor here, for which we share the driveway. We did not have much further conversation, but we did reach out and provide our information for contact. But I think those are the main points I want to make. I know that one of the staff, or one of the planning commission members, had some questions about the pet waste business. I think it's important to note that no pet waste is stored on site or disposed of on site. It's actually disposed of at a city property. It's on 10th and Mosley. I do agree about the land use change. We're going to go ahead and eliminate dry cleaning services if you guys would allow us to do so at this planning commission hearing. And the church did have some concerns also for the paint booth operation, if we would be allowed to do a paint booth. We presently do we presently don't do a paint booth. We do it off-site, but we would like the ability to have that use as part of the refurbishment of the golf carts and such. I don't know that they would be doing any buses, repainting of buses. I think that's a little bit bigger operation, but I think for sure the smaller vehicles and other vehicles of that sort, we would like to continue to have that opportunity to do that. So with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions for Brian? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody in the audience wants to speak on this issue?
Good afternoon. My name is Amber Hemman. My address is 1905 North Mays. I live in this property right here. We moved in 2015. First off, I do want to say that Brian and Lynette both did come over and contact me after working. I'm a registered nurse and I work nights. They came over after my shift one day to try and talk to me about this. I did try contacting him last Friday. I left a message and then I called 3 more times that day. Still have gotten a return call. So, because I do have several issues and questions that have not been addressed. First off, I have some safety and health issues. We're unsure. I mean, there's different businesses that are going on over there, such as a concrete business that rents out this small building here and then they park back here. And we don't know if they're dumping anything or if the pet waste is actually dumping anything. My husband and I have seen some of the pet waste with bags and things on the back that are dropped off over near this building. So my problem with that is our home was built in 1968, so we're on a private well, which is used for drinking and cooking with. So I'm not sure if any carcinogens or contaminants are leaking into the ground that we could be consuming. Also, let's see here. Let's see. I'm just trying to find a picture of the passage. Okay, so this right here is our property. We pay taxes on that. That's part of the easement, but it's not big enough to accommodate the traffic load that comes through presently. About halfway is gravel and the other half is paved. So we constantly get water runoff right now that creates dips and things in the gravel. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm trying to go back to the main screen so I can show you a picture that I sent in.
Philip, you want to give her a hand with that, or?
Okay. Okay. So this picture was taken on November 4th. This is a common occurrence. These are vehicles, like this is the concrete truck with their trailer and a row of vehicles. They're double lined. They're parked on the easement, blocking my husband and my son from leaving for work that day. They sat there for almost 10 minutes before getting the gate unlocked. There's a gate that runs right at the end of the easement. This happens frequently. I've had they store campers, boats, utility trailers, things like that. So especially in the summertime, when people are going and picking up their boats or campers and bringing them back, I have several more pictures at home where there's 4 or 5 vehicles lined with their campers or boats, blocking us from either coming or going from our own house, which is rather frustrating. And that's another safety issue, is if we had a medical emergency, I mean, we wouldn't get help as quick anyway. So
Amber, your time is up. How much more do you need?
could I have 2 more minutes,
2
please?
minutes you have.
Okay. So I didn't want to bombard you guys with pictures. Also, we've had a FedEx semi one time sitting in this area, blocking my son from being able to park in his spot. They sat there for over half an hour because they could not contact the owner and get access to the lockbox to allow them to pass in to the land. I'm in my line of work, ethics and transparency is always a must. I feel like it's lacking here, because to go from the zone where we are right now down to a PUD, that's leaves this case open for several things to be done. And I'm just unsure of what other plans they have that they're just not stating. But anyway, I think that what's already going on at the property right now, what they've been doing for over 2 years, that it could have been zoned for something lesser if that's their plans to keep that going. So
Any questions for the speaker? Mr. Foster.
I'm curious, and I apologize if you already stated it. When did you purchase your property? Was it before the current owner or after the current owner?
it was prior to the current owner, which actually when the land came up for sale, we contacted Mike Kirk, who was selling it, and I actually called the city to see what it was zoned for and what we would be able to use the land for. And since I was informed that it was residential with just the few the few grants that have been accessed or approved years ago for like agricultural use and things, we just decided not to purchase it. So.
Any additional questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other speakers? Yes, come to the microphone, please. You will have 3 minutes. State your name and address for the record.
I live,
Sir, could we give you your name and address, please?
from this map here. Wait just a second, excuse me. I live right here. Oop. Right there. And, for the last 11
Sir,
years,
we give
I've
your
lived
name
in
and
this.
address, for the record, please. Your name and address.
Oh, Jim McLean, 1825 North Lark Circle.
Thank you.
Sorry. For the last 11 years, I've lived in this house, and I've put up with all kinds of stuff off of this lot. We get dust and dirt in our house. You know, our system must suck it in somehow, but they're constantly going in and dumping dirt, or I don't know what chemicals they're bringing in there. But also the dump trucks that back into this area, they'll back up and they'll slam those tailgates shut. I don't know if you guys have ever heard a dump truck tailgate, but it gets irritating, the noise that comes out of this area. And our housing development area right in there is real quiet. But due to this lot has been a residential lot that's been used for commercial, and right now it looks like a junkyard. They've got vehicles parked all up and down the fence, and most of the houses in this area are two-story houses. And when we look out our second story, this is what we see as a bunch of junk.
Mike, could you speak into the microphone, please? We're having a hard time hearing you. Speak into the
Oh,
microphone.
I'm sorry. All I see is a bunch of junk, in this area. Right now they have, motor homes, cars, all parked in a line. And if they're not hauling dump trucks and tractors in and out of this area, day and night. So I don't really understand how they're getting away with this. If I would take and park vehicles all over my yard, the city would do something about it. But this being a residential area is no different than my house. And I would just like to add that this area is nothing but dirt. And every time a truck comes in and out, they stir that dust and dirt up, and it blows right over the residential area. Okay.
Any speakers? Any questions for the speaker? Thank you. Anybody else in the audience wish to speak on this issue? State your name and address for the record, please, and you will have 3 minutes.
Brian Himman, 190805, North Maze Road. And I know we need to do something with the property. It's been,
So are you the owner of the property?
I'm the owner of this property.
Which? Okay.
And I know we need to do something with this property, but what it's being used for right now, it's not zoned for, shouldn't be zoned for. We got all residential, and then we got a GC right in the middle. Getting ready to do whatever. It's a circus over there.
Any questions for the speaker? Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak on this issue?
My name's Gordon Kirkbride. I live at 1824 North Lark Court. That is right here. And I don't see a lot of the property. I do have a two-story, and I can look over there, and they have had a trailer over there that they used to run equipment in and out of. I do notice that I've got a nice family of skunks come over to my area, and possums, but I never noticed that before. So I just thought I'd pass that on, that I do have this problem now. So keep it in thought. Thank you.
Questions for the speaker? No? Thank you, sir.
Dan Dorflinger, 2001 North Maze Road. I'm the facility director for Pathway Church, the church that's adjacent to this lot. And I just wanted to say a couple of things. One, Brian and Nathan both approached us before the zoning change happened. And they've been working back and forth with us on several different things that were included in the original document that we were sent. They've been very forthright and forthcoming with any information. They've made changes as we suggested. The only couple of things that we would still like some more conversation on, and I know that they're willing to do that, was the dry cleaning, which has been removed or which will be redacted from that. So we're thankful for that. The only other thing would be just the vehicle repair general that's listed in the zoning. The only, and they spoke to that just a little bit in terms of the paint booth that could be installed. I think we'll just probably try to have some more dialogue on that. And the reason for that being, I don't know if you can see it here in the picture, but on the south side of our property, adjacent to the church, is the playground that we have preschool kids on every day, pretty much, or church activities, we use that playground, which is, you know, if we were to have a south breeze, they could blow fumes from a paint booth or whatever would be here. So that would be our only concern at this point. And I've talked to Brian also about the fencing. I know that we installed fencing, actually, I think just as you were buying the property. So I'm not exactly sure what side of the property line that fence is on. But other than that, just to say, they have approached us. They've been very forthcoming with all the information on the property, and we're thankful for that. And that's it. Thank you.
Any questions for the speaker?
Can I ask a question?
Thank you, sir. Anybody else in the audience wish to speak on this issue? Okay. Brian, you have 2 minutes.
We'll try to be concise here. First of all, I think it's important to note that I think the dumping of dirt and dump trucks, I think that's in reference to the previous owner. Certainly that was a construction company, an excavation company. An excavation company is not operating here now, nor have there been any dump trucks on this property for over 5 years. So that's important to note. The owners are diligently trying to clean up the property. It was left as is from the contractor when they purchased it, so it's a big undertaking. They do store vehicles, like I was mentioning earlier, inside the barn here. Some of those RVs, and that's why we're trying to restrict the northern part on the PUD for those type of uses to being good neighbors. I think there was just some concern about the traffic that comes and goes from the property. I did speak with the owner about this because this was a concern of mine. There's very little traffic running in and out of here, believe it or not. The construction company comes and goes maybe twice a day. The pet business, they come here in the morning. They meet up and then they go out to do their job. They dump their waste off-site. They don't bring it back, and they deliver the trucks back to the site at night. So then they leave from the business there. The golf cart business and the bus business is a very probably low volume business. I think that picture spoke to a unique situation where someone didn't have the key apparently to get in. I think what we'll do is we'll look at having some sort of remote access at some point in time so that people would be able to get in with like a garage door opener of some sort. So hopefully that
Brian,
helps
your
you.
time has expired. Questions for the speaker? Mr. Richardson.
So, Brian, looks like one way maybe this access problem could be solved is if the owner would move his fence and gate so there were, 20 or 30 feet of parking on his own land while they're waiting for the gate to be opened, sort of an inset there. Right now, I think the gate's right on the property line, is it not?
This gate is on the property line, but as you can see, there's a significant amount of room here. They've got several units here,
Right.
And they've got lots of parking there. I think this drive itself is about 30 foot wide, and then they have a parking area behind that. So the actual drive is kind of sitting in this realm right here where I'm pointing.
Well, again, I think something maybe the owner ought to consider is, some sort of indentation in his gate there if you've got trucks or whatever parking there. The other question I have is all this is preferenced by saying if it's developed for non-residential, which it already is developed for non-residential. Help us understand, and maybe it's a staff question as well, what will be immediately required for the owner to do to bring this into compliance? Which one of these conditions will they have to meet? I mean, I think they'll have to meet the screening and the fencing and all of that. In essence, yesterday for this all to happen. Is that?
Yes, that's correct. The property, if this is approved, will have to immediately install the screening and landscaping.
Mr. Green?
Yeah, Brian, there was some mention of a paint booth, or potential of installing a paint booth. What kind of environmental requirements are there with installing a paint booth and the venting of such booths?
That is not my expertise, unfortunately. I'd love to be able to answer that question. I can assure you they would be installing everything to code, if not in excess of code, because of the church and the school nearby, the preschool. So I know that we have full intention of being good neighbors and keeping that open dialogue, making sure we understand where the fence line truly is as far as ownership wise. We'll be, I'm sure, surveying it at some point in time and making sure we understand where that fence line is. And we're going to be good neighbors and continue to work with the neighbors.
Mr. Blick, did you have a question?
I have a question for staff. On this, is that a private drive?
The drive access to Maze Road is yes, it's on private property through an access easement across two different properties.
Okay, so the couple of questions that were asked, so we're talking about dust and stuff. If they want to, it's going to be basically on the property owner. Is that correct? If they want it?
I'm not, staff has not seen the terms and conditions of the access easement to be able to answer that question.
Sounds great. Thank you.
I guess the question I have in conjunction with that is, Brian, you said that it looked like it was about a 30-foot drive.
Yeah, from recollection, it's about a 30-foot drive. It does carry on through the doctor's offices up front here.
Is the 30, I guess the question I have is
it's
the
denoted
30
right
foot,
here.
Is the 30 foot based on its use, or is that?
No, it runs with the land.
There is a 30-foot easement.
Yeah, you can see there's a 20-foot setback right here for landscape, and then there's a 35-foot building setback, and this right here is the easement in question. I'd say it's 30 foot. And I could certainly provide staff that document to confirm that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Foster?
I've got two questions, and Scott, if you'll help me on this one. My understanding on the landscape requirement is that when you do the calculation for the number of required trees, that's all it is. You're just figuring out the number. It does not speak that you put them 30 feet apart. And my point is, when we saw one of the photographs, is I would suggest and make sure that all the landscape is used to plug the visual holes onto the property for the neighbors to the south. Is that correct?
Yeah, the PUD language in provision 3C requires a spacing of the trees. It designates 30 feet on center.
Then I would suggest that be changed, because there's no point in putting those trees where all those evergreens are to the south. I think it should just meet the quantity and then plug all the holes for the neighbors.
But it also states that existing trees are allowed to be counted.
Well, I would propose it would go to at least 1.5 times then on this.
That is 1.5 times.
30 feet is 1.5 times. The standard requirement's 40.
Okay, thank you. I do have a question for the speaker, the neighbor there. If you could go to the podium, please. If you would, again, I think one of the issues here is landscape intensity, and frankly, I don't have a good understanding. It seems like a mixed bag of what's going on there. So if you could speak to what you've witnessed in terms of what are the uses going on today?
The uses today are the concrete business and then different people who come to either drop off their golf carts, pick them up, whatever. People who store campers, boats, utility trailers, and they're not just stored in this building. They're stored all along here and here, along with other trash. And then there's the waste disposal, the scoop and do, which is the dog waste disposal. And I'm really unsure of what else is going on, but when Mr. Lindebach said that the traffic is minimal, I would like for him to come stay at our house for a week and see how much traffic goes on any time of the day. It's Monday through Sunday, anytime. I've seen traffic over there as late as 11 o'clock at night. When you're renting out spaces for campers, trailers, utility trailers, they have access to that at any time. So it's not as limited as what it's being, that it's being presented.
On the concrete business, do people come and pick up concrete and haul it off, or are they taking trucks in and out of there for concrete deliveries?
I'm honestly not sure. We see different people who go. Sometimes they park the concrete truck and trailer there, and then sometimes they don't. There's also a speed limit sign that's posted up here by the doctor's office for 10 miles an hour. However, like the concrete trucks and different vehicles that go through are clearly going well over 10 miles an hour, and it does create a lot of dust and things too. There's been cases where either myself or one of my boys or my husband has tried backing up, and then we've nearly been ran into by vehicles that are either coming or going. And this is just my husband and my 3 kids and my granddaughter live in this home, and then this is a detached garage. So if there's going to be a paint booth too, it's not just going to affect the church and the playground, because my yard is a playground for my kids and my granddaughter as well as with these homes.
On the road to the south, what's your understanding of who is required to maintain that and who shares in the cost of repairs or paving?
We're unsure at this point. The only document that I've been able to retrieve from the county records was written in 1986, and we've actually already spoke with an attorney. It's so vague, he's unsure too of who is supposed to maintain it. We do pay the taxes on it, and it's not 30 feet wide, as was mentioned. The part that was shown behind my son's vehicles, when cars are parked there anyway, it's blocking our access. I mean, we still can't either come or go when people are parked there, which is common.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe Johnson had a question, looked like, and then Ms. Miles.
My question was, I couldn't remember which one of the speakers talked about all the trucks coming in and out, which was not what we heard from the presenter. Who made that statement? Okay. Is that correct?
Yes.
Ms. Miles?
Thank you.
Could I add to this?
Let me go ahead and talk to him first. Go ahead and answer the question, sir.
A business like this belongs out away from a residential area, not right next door to it. And all the dust and dirt from these vehicles going in and out, it's just it constantly drifts over into our neighborhood. And then we have all the noise from the vehicles slamming, maybe they're not tailgates, but they're, the ramps that's used on trailers, slamming them down on the ground, picking them back up, slamming them. I'm sure you guys wouldn't want this next door to your house.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. Let me ask another question. Maybe you know the answer to it. What's the surface material on that property?
It's nothing but dirt. There's no grass, there's just dirt.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Miles?
I just want to know if you ever hear or see any type of dump trucks or hear the tail ends slamming.
Yes, I have.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Richardson?
It's a staff question. Scott, what would be required under this for paving requirements to use this property, since I think probably most of it's not paved? What requirements would there be to pave some or any of it? Maybe, Philip, do you have a thought on that?
Well, I was just going to go to kind of the site pictures again. You can see as you get initially into the property, it looks like there's some leftover pavement and some paved areas in front of some of the buildings, definitely some gravel. This is grass. I'm standing in the very southeast corner looking to the east, so there is a grass area over here. I think as you get closer to the buildings on the north, it becomes gravel. Again, so I'm on the north property line here looking south. So I was standing over in this corner. You can see the majority of the gravel is more on the north side of the building or north side of the site. So to say the entire side is gravel is not necessarily accurate, but there is definitely some gravel areas, some pavement left over, and some grass areas as well.
Well, many of these uses carry their own requirements with them for pavement and so forth. So that, it's kind of my question, maybe.
The way the PUD is stated, it says that all parking is required to follow section 4A, which is going to require all parking areas and the circulation aisles to those parking areas to be paved.
So that should cut down on the dust and that sort of thing. And so I assume that would be from their gate inward. And obviously they don't own the part outside.
That's correct, from the gate to their required parking areas.
Mr. Blick?
I'd like to make an approval of staff's recommendation with the exclude or elimination of dry cleaning operations for business use on this property.
How about the paint booth?
I think the paint booth is, if they're gonna put it in, the city really puts restrictions over filtration systems and everything. I've seen a couple of paint booths that if they do it, they have to have all those restrictions per city code, if I'm correct by staff.
We have a motion. Is there a second to that motion? Seeing none, that motion dies for lack of a second.
I'm going to follow that up with a motion to deny.
Is there a motion to deny? Is there a second to that motion? That motion dies for lack of a second. Mr. Foster?
Staff question is, in understanding, do we have a situation where these are legal non-conforming uses? I'd like to understand the extent of non-conformity for the existing condition.
The uses that are used on this property were established without conformity to the zoning code. The zoning code allowed a excavation business through the conditional use. These other uses, the storage of trailers, the body shop, those sorts of things were all established without conformity to the code.
I'm going to weigh in just a little bit. There's some things that are concerning to me. One of them, and that it's difficult to do because the applicant does not own the entrance, but the entrance is the problem to the neighbors. Is that it? For my approval, would want to see that the applicant pave or concrete the entrance because of the dust that is being brought into there. The other thing would be a requirement that signage be put in that there would be no parking or blocking of the properties that if they come in that area, they've got to get on the applicant's property and not stay in that easement situation. I think that's not right that they can block somebody else from that situation. It's an access road. It's not a parking situation, so that should not be allowed. Mr. Blick?
So question I have is, since it is a private drive, the property owner that's adjacent, they own the property, they're paying taxes. Are they responsible for that? So if we're saying that, are we telling the applicant to pave somebody else's property?
Let staff answer that.
Yeah, I defer to law, but I think if you believe that is a necessary condition to make this particular use work, that is acceptable. I mean, it's not a public road, but you could require them as part of the approval of the PUD that they pave the access point, unless Sharon tells me no.
I don't know that I have enough information to answer that question without seeing what the terms of that easement were. And you indicated that we don't have that document. Is that right, Scott? So I don't know that we can put a condition on that would be contrary to whatever that easement says.
I guess all I would follow up with is if you approve it that way and they can't do it, then they're dead. I mean, the zoning approval is not valid.
Mr. Miller, I apologize, but we would be agreeable to paying for our share, our half of the driveway. I don't think that's an issue.
What is your half?
Our half of the ownership of the drive, the main, well, we do own an easement for it, so we do own that.
Doesn't ownership also mean that you pay taxes on it?
That is not how an easement works. An easement works completely different from that.
So can we require also that there's not a gate where the properties join, that it has to be left open where the gate opens up, say deeper, 20 feet onto their property, so there's absolutely no waiting, blocking them in?
Yes.
That's a reasonable requirement, sure.
Mr. Hartman?
Looking at the site plan, it looks like that private drive through there is the same width as the drive up by the dentist's office. And typically you have about a 24-foot wide drive lane, and then you have 20-foot of parking stalls. So it looks to me like it's between 20 and 24 feet wide, at least where it's paved coming in off of Mays Road. But either way, there's a problem when you get back to the property line. There's no way to turn around. And if you got big vehicles coming in and out of there, how are they going to, if the gate's locked, how they get turned around? I think this is just the use for this private drive, and being in the residential neighborhood just does not fit with me, and I'm for denial.
Let me ask a question. We're putting a lot on the table here, and we're kind of throwing it nilly-willy. What about deferring any action?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
I could just shout real loud. There's a motion to defer to.
And I'm not going to set a time limit because we have no idea how long it'll take.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Joe Johnson, and I have a second by Mr. Bill Johnson. Discussion on the motion, Mr. McKay.
My only question is, I'm in favor of the deferment, but this question of who pays the taxes is because they're on the people's property. But if we're going to say, if we come back on the deferment, if they are required, can we require them to pave from their property line to Mays Road, or from the parking lot in front of where these people's properties at on the ingress egress situation?
That's a good question that I think that they would need to figure out before they come back.
That's one of the reasons why I brought the question up, because we're throwing a burden on these people for these, and if they're going to help them, then let them pay for the paving, not the people that are there.
I agree.
I'm just going to throw out a couple observations. One is, this is very tough to decide in the sense that if you deny it, you're making the non-conforming uses legal.
If you deny the rezoning or the clarification, then staff would be, I would assume, directed to deal with those uses because they don't conform with the current code.
Okay, so, but I want to make sure that's the way it would happen, and that it just still would not stand
Scott, didn't you indicate that
as
there
legal
had been one
non-conforming
notice of-
uses.
Yeah, there's the uses that, in terms of the vehicle equipment, sales, vehicle repair, outdoor rental sales, storage, construction sales and service, that was the use that was permitted. But the warehouse self-storage, those uses that the applicant indicates that they began using the property for, they began using those uses as on a property that was zoned SF5 with a conditional use for an excavation business, and that's it.
Well, just the broad concept I'm talking about here is, what is the use that is appropriate for this area? You know, we're trying to make something happen here, but anyway, we'll see how this plays out, but it's a challenging decision.
If you look at the last paragraph on page 7 of the staff report, there's a statement from the applicant that they began using these and were unaware that they were in violation of the zoning regulations.
Mr. Richardson.
So the original, Scott, conditional use would apply until this is worked out, is that?
I don't believe that the conditional use, I think it was stated that it was expired. I think Philip stated that. You might answer that because I was not aware that that had occurred.
Information that I even got from the applicant said that the conditional use expired in 2017 when the property was sold.
Yeah, that's not accurate. Conditional uses don't expire upon transfer of ownership.
Unless there was something written into the conditional use that we don't know about. But Scott's right. Generally, a transfer doesn't get rid of the zoning.
Conditional use goes with the property is our understanding, so.
Dan? Go ahead.
This is a really old conditional use, and it was in the county, so it was under the county zoning ordinance or resolution as opposed to the city. It's possible. At any rate, to answer your question, if the uses are illegal today, by delaying or denying this is not going to make them legal.
And the conditional use was granted in 1973, and I'm pretty sure it has changed hands more than once since the property was acquired in 2017. So I doubt it was worded that way.
Yeah, we have a motion before the floor. Is there any discussion on that motion?
Can I ask a question? This property backs up to the church, is that correct? Would it be feasible for them to also talk to the church about access to the property? I just throw that out.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor of the motion signify by the raised hand. Those opposed? Passes 12-1 or 13? How many?
2.
12-2? Who was the second? No.
Blick and.
Mr. Blick, okay. Okay,
Come on, Dan.
what item are we on now? That was 4-2?
That was 4-2.
So we're down here at 4-3?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dave, you're out with planning staff. Okay.